Before we get started, please remember to subscribe to my videos, ring that bell so that you get notifications. Like the videos, please. I look forward to hearing your comments. Comment in the comment section, and if you get a chance, share this with your friends. Let them see what I'm doing here at Chopper Bob Customs. Bob here, Chopper Bob Customs. Today I'm working on the 32 Bantam funny car. Gonna make filler panels to cover up this area right here that would allow flames to get back into the driver's compartment and also give it a platform for building the body extension, which I'll be doing in a future video. So basically today I'm going to be making some MDF hammer forms. Going to be cutting out some aluminum as my neighbor would call it, panels, and forming them on the hammer form, and then drilling some holes, tapping some holes, and mounting them to the firewall slash motor plate. So let's get started. From what I've been told, this car started off life as a late 60s, early 70s funny car. Because of that, it's got a wide frame. I think it's like 36 inches. Back in the day, they ran the headers down between the engine and the frame and then ran the zoomies out the side. They usually stuck straight out the side, not the upswept versions that you see on today's funny cars. And on today's funny cars, like the blown retirement funny car that I'm the crew chief on, the headers actually exit the engine and come on the outside of the frame rails right at the very beginning. Because of that, then they've got a narrow chassis, where this one is fairly wide. This one has been updated with a late style cage. This probably had what I call a box cage, sort of like a door slammer cage, a hoop in the back, a hoop in the front, connected with straights and diagonals. This has got more of what you would see on a modern funny car, the 6-bar funny car style cage. And it'll cert to 750. It would take an extensive amount of work to get this thing to cert for faster than that. But when I got the car, all it had on it was these aluminum panels. So it didn't really have the shape of anything recognizable as an altered, and I kind of wanted something that looked more like an altered. Because it is wide, most of the Model T bucket bodies would have required extensive modification to make them fit. And then you end up with a lot of money in something that you have to modify. It just didn't make sense to me. The thing about a Bantam body is this is actually just a little bit wider than the chassis, so it works out pretty good. And I've always kind of liked the Bantam look, and they're out there. And I actually saw one that I'd had to drive a ways to pick up, and it was practically brand new. It might have actually been brand new. It was $300. So they're around. You can find them, and if you're wanting to build an altered, I'm obviously sold on it. I managed to get this one locally. A guy had it and another one. The other one is practically new. My original plan was to get this one fit to the car and then use it to actually modify the new one and put the new body on it. But the more I thought about it, the more I decided to just try and fix this body up so that it would be at least decent looking, and I didn't have to destroy a new body, because one of the signature things about a Bantam is the spare tire well. And because this was originally a funny car, it's got all this structure back here, which I'm assuming was for mounting the back part of the funny car body for the tilt. And there's just no way to get a body on this. I probably could have gone with like a short pickup body, but like I said, the T-body didn't really fit the car, so I had to cut this gaping hole in it. And so I've kind of decided, if I can, keep the body that's in new condition, and maybe someday I'll have a different frame that I can mount it on. Because, like I said, one of the things about it is what I had to cut out of this one, and that's that spare tire well. So it's taken out of it. Obviously, from the cutting, there's some cutouts that were probably too much, but it is what it is. I've got a little bit more trimming yet to do, but for right now, it's fitting pretty well. It might be a little bit far forward. They obviously hogged out the wheel openings, way oversized, but I've sort of got it centered. The clamp, the vice grip is on there because of the way it was stored. It's got a couple of stress cracks right at the top of the wheel openings on both sides, and I'll probably go in with matte and resin to try and reinforce that and get it so that it's not flopping. That combined with some Zeus fasteners at the back to hold that tail section up is probably going to take care of that. So with that said, I've gone ahead. It had tonneau cover pieces on it. I have gone ahead and relieved them so that it will fit the wide chassis. And as you can see, I've kind of every third pop rivet I put in, but I also have the rest of the pop rivets just in there as placeholders to make sure that when I go to actually fully assemble the car, that it's going to work fine. And so the project right now is to fill this ugly gap. And what I've done up to this point, let's go over here. The first thing that I did was I made a masking tape template, and originally this went over a lot further, but I've trimmed it to fit to get this body line feature because I did want to run that forward. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting in filler panels here that will have that body line feature on it, but I also need to fill this gap right here. They're using the motor plate as a firewall, and if you have a header fire, will get oil on the headers and you get a fire going. It had two nice paths right to the driver right there, and so I'm going to be filling those in. And so that's what this pattern is for. I went ahead and cut it to width so that it will fill this area up right here. And I've got those pieces over here. And then what I'll be doing is I'll be hammer forming them. So one of the things that I did was I used this to lay out on the MDF board my hammer form, and I've got another one on the back side of this that I'll be cutting out. And then I've also gone ahead and laid out one piece that I will be using to make the filler panel there, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it out and use it as a pattern to lay out the second one. I didn't see any point in doing all the measurements on the second one. I'll just use this one to mark it out and cut it out of the second piece of aluminum. And so let's get started with cutting out the MDF. On previous MDF tooling that I've made for hammer forming, I used a jigsaw. And jigsaw works really great for following the line. The problem is that while you're using it, the blade can wander. Now, I don't mean that it wanders away from the line. You can keep it on the line really well. But what will happen is the blade will flex side to side. And on thin material, that's no big deal. But when you're talking about MDF board, 3/4 inch, 7/8 of an inch thick. If it wonders, what's going to happen is you're not going to have a 90-degree angle between the clamping side and the hammer to side, which makes it a little bit difficult to make the part correctly. You end up with the hammer and dolly work, and then your line isn't as crisp as you'd hope it would be. So I decided not to use the jigsaw to do this. I decided to use a bandsaw. Now the thing about the bandsaw is the blade is going to stay fairly well perpendicular to the work surface. The biggest problem is it's kind of hard to get a 2x4 sheet into the bandsaw unless you got a special table, which I don't have. So what I did was I went ahead and cut my two pieces into manageable pieces that I could run through the bandsaw. The other thing is I thought, well, why don't I use the bandsaw in the shop? It's all set up to cut metal right now. It's not really a bandsaw that should be used to cut metal, but that's what I use it for. But I thought, well, rather than do that, I got a perfectly good bandsaw out in the shop, out in the shed actually, set up to cut wood. And so I'm just going to go ahead and use it, and we're going to see how this goes. Oh yeah, and that's actually a lot better. That's a very good 90. So let me get this other one cut out, and then I'll have my hammer forms. And so there we have it. And those are some 90-degree angles. Let's take a couple minutes and talk about the 90 degrees. Obviously I wanted to get those Hammerform tools as close to 90 degrees as I could get them, and the bandsaw did a much better job than the saber saw, and so I'll probably be making them on the bandsaw from here on out. But let's talk about 90 degrees. People can usually see when something is at a right angle. There's probably a handful of people that look at something that's a right angle and they don't recognize it as a right angle, but most people, when they look at an angle, they'll say that's a 90-degree angle. Now, nobody's perfect when we're doing this, so it could be 89 degrees, it could be 91 degrees. There's probably a handful of people that could actually tell when it's not right on 90 degrees. But most people probably aren't going to notice the difference until you get out to 85, maybe even 80 degrees, or 95, 100 degrees before they realize that it's not a perfect 90-degree corner. Now, the thing that will stand out that people will recognize is if you've got an 89 degree paired up with a 101 degree, because now what's happening is you're forming an X, and that will stand out. So on this car, this is a pretty close 90 on the Firewall, on the motor plate, okay? But this over here on the body is actually a gentle curve, and it curves down and in. So what ends up happening is people will recognize that, but because the rest of the body has a natural curve to it, down and in, it won't be noticeable. But if you were to make this part up here so that it was down and out, it would stick out like a sore thumb. So when you're doing this, if you're not going to be perfectly straight up and down with this, you need to be down and in to go along with this body line right here. That being said, when I made the masking tape pattern for this, I went ahead and put a vertical line on the pattern so I would know which way to err if I was going to err. And so that, and then even then, when you're all done with it, you need to stand back and look at it and see if you need to tweak it. Because if, like I said, if you're going in opposite directions, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. But if you're going close to the same, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're going close to the same, it's going to look good to the eye. And that's what we're really after here, is making it look good to the eye. This is not a machine part. It's obviously the body work, the paint is the art of the car. The engine is where you need to be accurate to the thousandths of an inch. Right here, you need to be aesthetically pleasing. I'll get off my soapbox now. Okay, so this is some scrap material that I had left over from the fan shroud on the 58 Delray. You can go back on the 58 Delray videos and see where I made the fan shroud. But this is just 16th inch, 60 thousandths, 16 gauge, I guess, aluminum. I think it's 30-03. And I've laid it out on here. And for this, I will be using a saber saw because it isn't thick, and so if the blade does wobble a little bit, it's not going to be noticeable. So let me get this cut out. Now, one thing that I'm not doing right now is I'm not cutting out this semicircle right here. This is what clears the frame rail, the top tube of the frame. I don't want to take that out right now because when I do the hammer forming along this line right here, I'm afraid that what's going to happen is it's going to distort this and pull it out of shape. So I want a nice crisp line along here, and then once I get that in, I will come back in and cut that half circle out. What I'll do now is get this laid out on another piece of aluminum and get it scribed out, and then that way I can get to cutting on it. Okay, so unfortunately, the only piece of scrap that I had left is where I cut the center of the fan out. So this will do just fine. And I wish I had a piece of square or rectangular piece that I could have cut it out of, but it is what it is. Okay, with that I've got my two pieces, and I'll need to make the line where I need to make the brake on the one, and then I'll get set up on the vise. Speaking of the 58 Delray, it has gone home for the time being. I've got some air conditioner work that still needs to be done on it. It will be back. I'm not sure whether I'm going to shoot any videos on it or not. Also, for those of you that have been following the Volkswagen videos, of course it's gone home a long time ago. I've still got probably at least one video that I need to edit and get out here on my channel, so keep an eye open for that. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to start working this flange down. And basically you just take your time, work your way around, because you're going to be stretching it in spots, and just kind of want to massage it around. When you get into these inside corners right here and right here, you're going to have to pay special attention to them, because two things. One is they're not going to want to go around there. And so a lot of times what you're going to have to do, and I didn't bring a regular hammer over here, let me go. You're going to want to make sure that you get in there tight and get that moving. Okay, and once you're sure that you've got it molded to the tooling as good as you can, let's take it out and see what we got. Okay, right at the very beginning, the most important thing you want to make sure that you're doing is hammering the material the correct direction. Otherwise, you're going to end up with 2 rights or 2 lefts, and where you need 1 right and 1 left. So what I've done is I've set this up. I want to hammer away from me. I've got it set up backwards from the way it was before, so that while this one is coming this way, this one's going to be going that way. That way I'll know I'll have 2 different pieces, a right hand and a left hand. And basically we're going to go through the same drill again. Got this cramped in here good and tight, and we just start working it over. It's kind of interesting when you're doing this. I know where it's shrinking and stretching, but this actually formed a tuck down in here that the other one didn't, and it's got just a little bit of a bow to it. So anyway, but there you have it. I've got the 2 filler panels. They got the body style line going through them, and I'll cut the radius out down at the bottom, and then I'll fit them to the car. That'll be next. Okay, so I went ahead and cut out the radius down here, and had to do some die grinder work. It's not perfectly round, but when it sits on the frame, you almost can't tell. And I mean, it's a lot better than the gap we had. Now, the one thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that this point right here is no higher than the top of this Firewall motor plate. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and force it down onto the frame tube, and then I will bring it out until it just touches the level on the Firewall, and then I will go ahead and vice grip that in place. Okay, so there it's just touching. Come in here. Pushing down on it onto the frame rail, making sure that I'm staying right there. And I have added 3 9/64 holes, which is close to the right size to tap for 1024. And I will go ahead and drill through the motor plate and tap it. Stop the video right here. You don't need to see me do all 6 holes, even though I'm going to speed it up and put some music in it. If you want to see all 6 holes, put it in the comments, and I'll next time I'll do this, I'll show all the tapping. But I think you've seen 1 hole tapped, you've seen them all tapped. At any rate, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll enlarge these holes to 3/16, and for right now I've got some 1024 screws over there. Phillips, they're a combination Phillips flathead or Phillips straight blade screwdriver, but eventually what I'll do is I'll get some button head Allen head button heads and put in it to kind of dress it up just a little bit. But that will get this part of it done, and then I think we'll call it quits on this video, and do the filler panel in a separate video. When the owner of the 58 Delray came and picked it up, he saw what sheet metal work I had to do, and he asked me if I really enjoyed doing it. And I kind of alluded to, you know, when it goes good, it goes very, very good, and when it goes bad, it can be a pain. particularly the Volkswagen 23 window, having set the welder up perfection, and then finding out that it didn't transfer to the vehicle like I'd hoped it would. That can be frustrating, but the truth of the matter is, in the process, I learned a lot about welding on older bodies. You don't take things for granted, and if I had it to do over again, I probably would have taken a couple of scraps from the Volkswagen body and seen if I couldn't run a bead on them and get the welder set up a little bit better, and also get me set up a little bit better. But you know, when I'm doing stuff like this, I mean, it's kind of challenging. I enjoy doing it, and it's not all that hard. You ought to try it yourself, and hopefully the things that I'm showing you on here, you can duplicate them at home if you want to do this type of thing. And if not, I hope you get entertainment value out of watching me. Again, please subscribe, tell your friends, share this video with them. Like, comment, and hit that notification bell so that you know when the next video is coming up. I'm not too regular on getting them out there, so if you have that notification set, you'll be able to pick them out. For now, that's about all I got. This is Chopper Bob out.